As everybody knows, Moen's in the background doing that heavy guitar. So I hope you'll tip him next time you see him and make sure you let him know how much you appreciate his doing the music solo for this edition of the College Football Mafia Network Sit Down Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me is a good friend and somebody that's become a frequent contributor over the last 2 years on everything we do here on the College Football Mafia Network. That would be Immaculate. How we doing, Immaculate?
Good tonight. Lots to talk about. Looking forward to having a sit down with you.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are anxious to hear, so because they know you're out there doing the legwork so that you can turn around and share what you've learned with the rest of us. And certainly we appreciate it when you do that. We appreciate everybody being here on an unnatural Wednesday night show. We were supposed to have a show last night, but my guest and I got some wires crossed, so we're going to be doing that next Tuesday night. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, but it'll be a special edition of the Big 12 Mafia, and it'll be an ACC match show. So that'll be a lot of fun. I hope everybody will look forward to that next Tuesday. On top of that, I want to thank everybody that's a current member of the College Football Mafia Network and its family of shows. We're very grateful for everything you've done for us, and we will continue to bring out special editions and members videos, which I think most people really appreciate. They make you the smartest guy at the water cooler the next day, and that's kind of what we try to set ourselves apart with, is special editions and shows. Certainly Wild Ute University has been the bellwether for that, and we appreciate everybody that is a member. Make sure you tune in and check those. All you have to do is go to the main page on the College Football Mafia Network on YouTube and then hit the membership, I believe the membership tab, and it'll take you to all the membership videos. We'd like to invite you to do that when we're done tonight. All right. I think what we're going to do is let's set the table a little bit. We had a nice tease. It was vague, to say the least, by Moen. But we're certainly talking about the future of college football and college sports in general, what the governance might look like, and how that will affect how we consume and how we will interplay with all of our favorite sports, and certainly with our favorite universities as we move forward with this new age of media money that is just raining in buckets right now. And who knows where that's going to be in another 5 or 6 years. But right now, it's certainly coming down in droves, and schools are doing different things with that. So I'm going to set you up with a quick question while we let people sort of join us here. I'm not going to jump right into hellos until we get a couple of questions in first. So Immaculate, we're talking the future of college sports here, and we obviously have articles to go through, and just in your mind, kind of project what you see is happening out in college sports and how the regulation, the governance is being handled by not only the NCAA, but what we're going to talk about tonight is the autonomous four conferences.
Deep subject. I'll try to quickly. What's happening is what some would see as kind of turning into the professionalization of college sports. I don't really want to call them professionals just yet, but it's kind of hard not to look at it and see it that way. I think we're going to have contracts, and these are starting in July. Like, we have a date. It's July. And they are getting this prepared for the next season. These kids are going to be having NIL contracts with their athletic departments, which means your name, image, and likeness, contractually speaking and legally speaking, will be owned by your school. You could see a situation where a kid wants to transfer to another school. That's fine. No one can stop you from transferring, but they'll have to pay for your NIL rights to follow you to that school. The way this could work out, you're actually going to see a lot more evening out of the talent. We're seeing that right now. There's the case that I like to point out is the 5-star recruit quarterback at Oregon who decided to go to California.
Right, which was a shocker.
He's going to get paid millions in his freshman year to play there. If he was at Oregon, he'd be getting paid $100,000 maybe to sit on the bench. These kids are looking at that money going, you never know. You never know when you're going to get hurt, injured, Look at, someone like Beck, who everyone thought he'd be a first round draft pick, and now it's like, well, is he good? Miami's willing to pay to find out, but you just don't know. And so these kids, they're not going to want to sit on the bench for a year or two anymore. I mean, you talk to a high school kid who's being told he's a phenom, he's a 5-star coming out. Time you should sit the bench over here rather than go over there and make a couple $1 million. Like, there's no way. So it's a whole new world, man. It is an entirely new world, and it's not just going to be football. We just found out that women's basketball is going to have credits for their tournament. So we might get shocked with what sports get turned into, kind of professionalized versions.
You mentioned Carson Beck. There was a rumor that just came out in the last couple of days that he's getting upwards of $10 million to play football at Miami. Can you believe that number?
It's hard to believe, because if we're really going to be capped out at 50% at 20 some million, that's 50% of what they're spending on all students.
Well, most of that's going to come from third
It's going to have to come from third parties, and that becomes a situation where that's where schools are really going to separate themselves. And a school like Miami, in a market like that, with the amount of money around there, who knows?
But he's not even that good, is the thing. I don't think he's a great quarterback.
It doesn't matter.
Unless you want 3 interceptions every game and
the stories
and a fumble or two.
It's a story, right? He has 1 year left.
Yeah.
And the story leading up to it and all the energy and attention it'll bring, that might be worth $10 million. I don't know, because they just stole Georgia's quarterback. What's crazy is Georgia said that they liked the other guy better. They wanted the other guy. And then now there's been stories come out that they tried to get him to come back once he said he was coming back. So stories aren't quite lining up on that one. And that kind of drama, it sells.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. All right, let's do some shout outs before we get really into the meat of the article that we're going to be talking about. That's a Ross Dellinger article. We'll preview that. But let's just do some shout outs really quick. Nathan Campbell says, hi guys, good to have you here, Nathan. Thanks for being here tonight. Clay Johansson checking in. Go blue, he says. We'll put that up there so everybody can see it. Also, Clay adds another, if you guys could change 5 things in college football, what would they be? I'm going to let you sit on that. I've got it flagged. We'll come back to that. But Brian, if you wouldn't mind thinking about that a little bit.
I got one already.
What those 5 would be. Okay, don't give your answer now. We'll tease that, Clay, and later in the show we'll get back to that. Okay.
I posted on there, so don't read it. Go right by mine.
Okay. FF18 Buffs. Good to see you, Fergie, in the house. Thanks for being a member. We appreciate you helping us out with a show a couple weeks ago, and we'll do that again in the future. You were fun to have on, and we'll do more. I promise. The Colorado Buffalo story is not ended yet. Fergie in the house. Are we having fun yet? Sports Center sucks. Scope Buffs, pay the man.
Deion's staying home.
Boy. I don't think if Deion goes to the Cowboys, I don't think it's going to be about money, because Jerry Jones doesn't really pay that well, to be honest.
There was a report out that they already have a new endowment, $10 million endowment for football head coach, and $2 million endowments for offensive coordinator.
To stick around, you're saying. To keep
so whoever's in the position is now going to be able to get that kind of money. It's being set aside for it. So I think that the gambit worked, and I think he's going to stay.
Oh, I think it was well invested. Even if it's only 2 years, it turned out great for Colorado. They're in a better conference, and now you're seeing where they're on the upside. They're winning again, and that by itself can help with recruiting and everything else. So anyways, we'll have to see how that goes. Let's see. We'll check in down here with Don in Kansas. Good to see you, Don. Greetings, everyone. Good to have you here tonight, Don. Thanks for showing up. Bill G, BYU alum, with me in the house. Member in good standing here at the Mafia family. Good evening. Good to have you here, Bill. Thanks for being here tonight. Illini Ted checking in, another well-endowed and great member of the Mafia family. Good to have you here, Illini Ted. Hello, Bomber and Immaculate. There you go, Immaculate. Got yourself a shout-out.
Felt big tenor.
Let's see here. Brett Taylor checking in. Good to see you, Brett. It's been a minute since we've seen you. Welcome back. Make sure you put us on redial and catch us going forward in this offseason. That's when we make hay. It's good to have you here. 2 questions, Brett says. What's going to happen to college football? When's it going to happen? I'm not sure those are easily answered, but there's a
Big
lot.
answers.
There's a lot. Inquiring minds want to know. We'll get to that eventually, I imagine. Jackson Johnson, good to have you here, Jackson. What's up, College Football Mafia Nation? Good to be here. Thanks, Jackson, for showing up on a Wednesday night. We appreciate it. Hi, Shonsky, another member of the Mafia family, saying hi, everyone. Good to see you, Shonsky. Thanks for being here. Daniel Gygash checking in. Did you catch Daniel's member video, Immaculate?
No, I honestly have not been able to keep up with a lot, but I'm very kind of. What was it about? What was he talking about?
I can't remember the title.
I remember seeing something about it.
Yeah, he did a really good job. He did it.
Good for him.
He did it last week. I'll bring up the list so everybody can see what that episode was. Daniel, why don't you just type it into the comment section since I don't have the title memorized? That would be great. He did a really good job. Glenn Hanna, good to see you, Glenn. Greetings from Eugene. Yeah, the Angry Ducks are in the house. Good to have you here, Glenn. Thanks for coming back. It's good to see you. Daniel says, Immaculate, I like the OT rules.
He likes them. Okay.
I don't know. Is that where it goes immediately to 2-point plays? I don't know.
Yeah.
That seems a little weird to me anyway, I don't know. Stephen Vitt, the title of this one has me curious. There we go.
Good.
Look what Moen did with the big T's with the title. We'll try to answer all of your questions, Stephen. If you want to start posting comments in the comments in the comment section with your questions, I should say, let us know exactly what you're looking for, and we'll see if we can answer it for you. Stormy Cyclone, another member of the Mafia family. Hi, guys. Halftime, Cyclones on top, 40-30. Iowa State's got a good basketball team. Jared Jones checking in, another member of the Mafia family. Thanks for being here, Jared. Good luck next week. Good luck against Notre Dame. I must admit I'm cheering for Ohio State. So I think Ohio State's probably the better team, but Notre Dame's made a good run. They have nothing to look back on and say they didn't meet all their expectations, because I think they certainly did.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Since we're all realignment nuts here,
mm-hmm.
Which team winning do you think has a bigger effect on how things go? Like, which one, if they win this thing, is it going to cause everyone to sit back?
I think if Notre Dame wins it.
So, like, the realignment nut inside me is like, I'm pulling for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But the Big Ten is like,
No, if a Big Ten or an SEC team wins, it's ho-hum, right? Everybody expects that. If a Notre Dame or a Big 12 or an ACC team wins now, that's a different story, because that's breaking the bank, and they don't want that. So,
like, my first reaction is just go Ohio State. But there's a little bit of me inside that's like, man,
you like the chaos that Notre Dame
wins. Oh, boy.
Tony Lawson checking in. How good to see you, Tony. Interesting story. Missouri's athletic department ran a $15 million deficit playing in the SEC. I just saw this an hour ago. Oh, that doesn't surprise me. It's tough to keep up in the SEC. It's an arms race, isn't it?
If you got to spend another $20 million now too.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But they're getting more money from a media deal, so they just need to maybe put their money together differently and use it in a better way. That's probably what I would say. Anyway, yeah, that's how it goes. Skaven, yes. Good to have you here, Skaven. Hello, gentlemen. Go Big Red. I've memorized that. Now that Skaven's got that.
I won't repeat it, but good to see him.
Antoine Codes, our ASU Sun Devil in the house. Hey, y'all, go Devils. Yep, go Devils. Go Devils. Right. That's cool. Get that shout out going. Jared Jones, my man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you, Jared. You've been great to have around, and I'm so glad that you've stuck with us. It's been a lot of fun. We got good days ahead. Mark Bowman, another member of the Mafia family, and a $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Mark. You know I don't do sounders around here, but I will clap for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you a great deal, and I'll try to have Moen give you a sounder on Friday. Immaculate mentioned
Mhm.
something about credits for the women's basketball tournament. What does that involve?
They just passed it an hour or two ago, where, as in the men's tournament, there's the way they do payouts is based on credits, and you earn a certain number of credits per round that you're in it. They're doing the same thing with women's basketball now. They just passed it, so I don't know what values are going to be there for it. We don't know any of that. But basically, now they've seen enough value in women's basketball. They've got TV deals for it. They're going to start paying these teams based upon how much they're winning
Oh,
participation.
good.
So you're going to see more money starting to flow into these programs to actually get them to be successful to get up into this. It has a great PR value for the schools, first and foremost, obvious
Right.
reasons. But now there's also a monetary payout for success. So expect to see a whole lot more movement in that direction.
What do you think the motivation is? Is it PR?
That's part of it. I mean, of course, it's part of it. But I think a lot of basketball fans are kind of noticing that the women's game is a little more technical, kind of almost a
Well,
little
they
more
certainly
old
don't
school.
travel every other play.
And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people like it. And it's not about wanting to, make a statement or whatever. It's just simply it's a different style of basketball. And so I think that everyone's kind of surprised that it's catching on like it's catching on. And I think it's picking up with women. So like a lot more top female athletes are getting into that now.
And Mark, just so we're very clear, each one of the men's basketball teams, when they qualify for the tournament, for every game they win, they get tournament credits.
Yeah.
And those
the same
credits
way.
go to they don't go to the school, they go to the conference. And then that conference turns around and doles them out however they want to. Each conference does it a little different. So right now that's done for men's, and now Immaculate's now reporting here tonight. First time ever that women will be getting those credits too, which is only fair. Women play basketball just like men do, so there's no reason that should be
and
one-sided.
it's not that their credits will be equivalent. It all comes down to how much money comes in from the tournament.
Right.
But they found that the numbers are high enough that they can afford to do this. And I do believe that most conferences have some of that credit money goes directly to the participant, and then the rest, gets doled out equally.
Yeah, I know Gonzaga gets a lion's share of their credits.
Yeah, that one's the extreme example.
I think they probably lose that supremacy in the Pac-12, though.
I would not be shocked if that's in the deal a little bit, but they're probably getting that up to some degree because they'll now be in a conference where maybe 3 or 4 teams will get in. So,
Mark, thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you. Bill G, yes, they needed an internal loan from the university. The previous 2 years, the development operated in the black. So I'm wondering why all of a sudden Missouri would be in the red. I don't know about that.
I got no idea. Maybe. Well.
If somebody has an answer to that question and wants to put it in the comments, we'll try to catch it.
They did just announce that they're going to be doing the renovations and expansion of the stadium.
Okay.
So maybe that cost is what they're having to borrow from the university to cover that.
Okay. All right.
Not sure, but maybe.
Daniel Gallia is following up on his shows. He says he's done 2 videos, Notre Dame over West Virginia and about private equity. So
private equity.
I forgot the private equity debate was going to be coming out. So Daniel, thanks for all your hard work. I apologize. I forgot about the second video. And since I haven't seen it yet, I need to go and watch that. So I appreciate you letting me know. Let's see here. We'll go down the line. Sergeant Pickles checking in. Contributor extraordinaire here at the Mafia channel. Sergeant Pickles says, good evening, all. Good evening to you, Pickles. Clint Moses, what happens if Notre Dame goes on a three-peat? Who's that good for? I still think it's good for everybody
Notre
else.
Dame.
If Notre Dame winning money, though, doesn't mean anything. Obviously, if they were win 3 championships in a row, which I don't think has been done in the modern era, that would stand out on its own.
Funny thing is, only 2 of them would give them a big payday. And starting in 2026, it doesn't matter how good they do. Their pay is pretty much set. So
because of the renegotiated contract.
Renegotiated payouts, yep. Whereas now it's all based upon like how good people do, how much they're into it. That's just for this year and for next year. And
Okay.
after that, it changes.
Carla Jenkins, who's a Twitter extraordinaire and somebody
Yeah.
who's always supporting us around here, keeping me and you, backing us up whenever we say stupid stuff. We appreciate all you do for us, Carla. And I was serious when I said before on Twitter, if you want to come on a show, all you got to do is let me know. Send me a message on Twitter. I'd love to have you on. I'd like to get your thoughts of what you think is next steps for this upcoming college football season. Certainly, as we look at the tournament, are they going to make any changes to the 12-team format? We'll have to see. Good. I am in the Big Ten. Notre Dame can stay over there. Okay. All right. Now we know where Carla stands. Let's see here. Moen to Society. Moen to Society. Promo the name. Just the Facts with Dan Gygax. That's the name.
Is that his new name?
It is. Well, it's not his whole new name, but it's the name of his videos.
Okay.
Just the Facts
Nice.
with Daniel Gygax. And Moen's
I was talking
on track.
I was
What's
talking
this
about Moen
Moen
there.
to Society?
That's what I was saying.
New to me. That one I don't know about. So maybe Moen will have to come on and tell us what that's all about. Sell his own brand, maybe. Let's see. Return of the Mac, Immaculate. There you go. See, you've had people wanting you.
Got the Beavers
You
sometime,
around.
all right?
Sergeant Pickles, until the Big Ten prevents their schools from scheduling Notre Dame, they have no reason to join a conference. That's one of many things, Pickles. But yeah, you're right. That's true. Yeah, I don't know that that's going to be changing going forward, but who knows?
Probably
At the end of the day, Notre Dame, I think they would do fine playing Big 12 and ACC teams and not worry about it. I'm not sure they'd play SEC teams, but who knows? They wouldn't want to travel as much as they would require, I don't think.
That could blow up on the Big Ten too. I know that gets talked about a lot in Big Ten ranks, but if you do that, I mean, they might just be like, well, we'll just join a different conference.
Moen is your latest X-Men. He has lots of variants across YouTube. Lots of. I know he has multiple brands. I'm just teasing him. But it's nice to know that he can actually change his hair color though. That's a good hair color.
That's like his Ohio State colors, right?
I think so. Ready? Yeah, I would think. One more from Illini Ted. Moen equals menace.
Menace to society. Nice.
People thinking, Moen, with that hairdo. I don't know anymore. All right, let's get right to this article, and we'll do a quick review, and then Immaculate and I will get in a discussion about a few of these items. You want to tell everybody kind of what's in this article that I'm going to be sharing here, Immaculate?
Yeah. The reason why we pulled this one up is for years, we've been talking about what's coming in the future, what's going to be. And one of the ideas that I strongly put forward and that we talked about and Bomber agreed upon, and there was a lot of agreement, is that the autonomous conferences setup was probably the perfect thing to empower further going forward here with House and everything else beyond that. But we didn't really ever have anything to say for sure say that's the case. This was the first thing we've gotten. And it just happened here recently, as it says, January 8th. They finally gave Dellinger the nod. I'm pretty sure he knew about this well before this, but they gave him the nod to go ahead and put it out there. And what this is saying is that a lot of the governance that comes down for the Power Four, and actually for FBS or whatever the new subdivision is going to be, the autonomous conference setup is going to be empowered with the ability to look over this instead of having to send everything through the entire Division I governance structure, which is convoluted and basically meant to stop anything from happening. They don't want much change. This thing is meant to very rapidly, very quickly make changes as needed. So this is basically letting us know that this was agreed upon by the parties at some point in time as they were preparing for the House settlement negotiations. So he kind of goes into it. He talks about what they might be able to do. I know he kind of gears up people by saying, oh, they might have power over the basketball tournament. And we can get into that if you want. But I mean, he's just kind of going into the whole setup of the case and what's going on. And then he starts to get into the details of this governance.
So let's talk about a couple of things in detail. So this first paragraph, however, as the NCAA works to establish a new governance model to coincide with the landmark settlement of the House antitrust case, the document indicates a clear direction from the SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, and ACC. They want an expansion of their previously existing autonomous legislative powers, not only for rulemaking and policy decision making, but for the NCAA championships as well, controlling concepts like tournament format, revenue distribution, and selection committee process. Why would they want that level of control? Immaculate.
My opinion is that they are going to create a postseason to replace the CFP. That's everything that they're talking about right there is in the CFP. Committee process, selection committee. That's already there. That's already in the CFP. So this is from the autonomous conferences, whatever they're going to do. Tournament formats. So they're going to be making new tournaments. Revenue distribution of those, especially ones where you might have multiple combined. That's what we see the CFP doing. The CFP kind of gave us a vision as to what they want to do. But the CFP is an LLC, so it's pretty quick. You can tear it down if you need to. Protects the members. So if the CFP goes away, they can't be sued for contracts that the CFP had. This is basically taking everything that is outside of the NCAA, which is the CFP, and now bringing it in. So it'll be sanctioned. It'll be controlled by them. But as you can see, it's under the direction of the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC, whereas the CFP is under the control of whom? Be all the FBS conferences. So this effectively would be bringing all the power pretty much to them.
So correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not even going to make a statement because I'm not sure what the answer is. Is this for 2026 forward, or is this for 2030, 31 forward?
Good question. Don't know. My thoughts are that some elements of it will probably be very quick. When the settlement is finalized, I think they're ready to go. Like you'll start to see some of these changes happen right away, but some of the decisions that the body will decide upon may not happen right away.
Okay.
Timing matters. They've got bowl contracts with ESPN on the CFP. You're going to have to make good to some degree. I mean, it's a partner for most of these conferences. They won't be on the hook for whatever goes away if they do away with the CFP. But they're basically looking at redoing, And one of the things he talks about is the basketball tournament. If they want to get a hold of that, which, good luck with that. That's likely
so
for the NCAA.
And again, I think this is where we need to look. The most of the money the NCAA gets is from the basketball, right?
Yeah.
So how can they possibly fight against them taking it over?
Yeah, that in a negotiation way, that's your weak point. So that's where they're going to push.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You're going to push that, and that's what they're doing. And you kind of see, Dellinger's a bit. He is a media guy, but he's also kind of an agent. You gotta kind of be an agent for these guys if you're going to get all the information, right? Because he's always on the cutting edge, Sankey, and now he has a job with the Big Ten Network. So these guys, I mean, it all flows through Dellinger. So he's providing a bit of that push, but my guess is they might get a slight expansion of the basketball tournament, 4, 6, 8 teams, whatever. Maybe a change to the payouts, but that's going to be determined by the NCAA. And in giving way on that, then they get everything else they want. Does that make sense? Like,
sure, yeah.
You push what is most important to them, so that way they give up the other things that you want. And they've been wanting this since 2014. They wanted a lot more on that board than what they got at the start when they first formed it. And this whole thing has been a fight from that day, from when the NCAA just gave them that much of what they wanted.
Right.
And it's kind of exciting to see. It's like, God, it's 10 years in the making.
Well, all the
And there
power
it is.
right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the power now resides at the conference level, not at the NCAA level. Isn't that correct?
In terms of just
Pretty
making
much
rules,
because of
no.
no, not from the rule standpoint. I'm talking the actual media money is flowing through the conferences. It's the only basketball money is the only thing that's really being controlled by the NCAA.
Yes, but what the NCAA controls, multiple times on the show, I said the first two things that I think that we'll see them pass. Maybe it won't be the first two, but the
Right.
two that are pretty close to guarantee will be that the NCAA right now limits them to having one football conference postseason game a season. And that's it. No more sanction than that. You can't have it.
Okay.
They're going to change that. So once you have more of that, then that all goes through the conference, right? There's no even reason to say that. So when the part you're talking about is they're planning on creating something that involves multiple conferences, and
Okay.
that's where like differences in payouts would come into play. And they don't want that to go through the Division One governance structure. They want it all to be determined on their board. So it sounds to me, unless they're just talking about other sports,
Right.
they're basically talking about creating a replacement for the CFP.
Okay. All right. I want to do a quick shout out. Haven't seen him for a minute. Jason checking in. Hall of Fame college football. Look him up on Twitter and on YouTube. Good to see you, Jason.
Well,
I hope you're
sir,
doing well. Happy New Year to you and your family. I've seen a couple of your shows recently. You're doing great work. I don't know if you knew this, Immaculate, but he's now running basically a 24/7 channel over there. He's got shows going all the
he was
time.
always extreme, but that's really extreme, brother. But
Yeah,
good
he's
for
he's a
you.
hard worker, very, very
Yeah,
hard
no
worker.
kidding.
Jason, it's great to see you. I'm glad you need to give me a call, okay, man? Let's talk. But didn't want him to sign off without me giving him a quick shout out there. All right, let's move it down farther in this article. There were a couple comments from Jim Phillips. Let's talk about this right here. The tournament dubbed March Madness is the crown jewel of the NCAA sports. That's the basketball tournament. Perhaps most popular for its feel-good upsets from low-seeded mid-major programs. The men's event is worth nearly $1 billion annual. Can you believe that? Just 1 year, $1 billion. By far the association's biggest cash cow that sustains the athletic budgets for many non-football and FCS programs.
Yep.
We still view the championships as binding us together, Sankey says. The basketball tournament is a national and American experience. I do think what happens in March is pretty cool. The Cinderella stories are part of the fabric, and we respect that reality. The one thing that Sankey leaves out is that basketball is the proletariat sporting event in college sports. Anybody can put five guys on a basketball court and go out and compete. It just depends how good they compete. So it doesn't take a lot of money to stay involved in basketball versus football, which all the money goes into a majority of the major brands. So guess right now, does any changes with governance have to do with the basketball tournament, in your opinion? Are we going to see any changes with these rules and how the basketball tournament is treated by the conferences?
No, that's like, would the NCAA give it up? That's like saying, we'll agree with you on this, and we agree to let you put a loaded gun to our head, and just you decide whether you want to pull the trigger or not. There's just no way. I can see some changes being made, and you'll probably see those get announced separately because they're not going to want to admit that all this was agreed upon prior to the House settlement. But I could see, like, the expansion that these guys want, the some payout situations. But I would be completely shocked if the NCAA gave up governance control over that tournament. It means too much to them. Like that, the NCAA itself takes one of the credits, or a certain number of credits, and that's where they get almost all their funding for their budget. And for they actually have things that they fund and pay for and send money to make happen. So without this, they can't do that. So,
Okay.
there's just no way.
Let's see here. We'll continue on. The Power League, specifically the Big Ten, SEC, used threats of a breakaway to consolidate more revenue during CFP negotiations last spring. The four leagues also spearheaded negotiations over the House settlement, agreeing to millions of dollars in back damages to former athletes, a portion of which will be paid by the non-power conferences without gaining their input. That's kind of a stickler still. There's some conferences and states even that have sued the House settlement, basically saying you can't tell us where to spend our money or where we necessarily get fined, essentially, to give their money to pay for NIL settlements for players that aren't theirs. Those lawsuits aren't going away anytime soon. Is there any portion of this that you think needs to be called out?
Well, this, when something works, you use it again. That's what they threatened to do in 2014. They said that they foresaw a problem coming in the future, which is that they were going to have to pay student athletes. They saw this going back a ways.
Okay.
And all they got from the NCAA was the autonomous conferences, as we know now, which is very limited governance, but all they can do is pay a stipend, and they have to pay that equally to all student athletes. Started out at like 2,500. I think maybe now it's up to like 5,500. But it's tough because that 5,500, that's not enough for football players, not enough for a lot of basketball players. But they can't pay those guys what they want because they'd have to pay that exactly to every other athlete.
Yeah.
So it's been a problem for them. They've wanted this since then, and I think they used the House settlement to get the NCAA to agree to this prior, so they could sit down as a core unit, as all six parties as defendants, to then negotiate with the plaintiffs. So I think this has actually been agreed upon since before they ever even agreed upon the House settlement.
Okay. All right. Anything else that I wanted to touch on? Was there any other part of this article that you wanted to mention?
That part there at the end is actually quite important.
Sure. Starting where?
The Power Leagues and NCAA entered into a 10-year agreement as part of the House settlement, binding the entities together through 2045. That's where, okay, we're going to give you all this power, but you're going to sign in not to leave.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's because if they were to leave, the NCAA tournament's done. Like, yeah, the Cinderella stuff is great, but you have to have the villain in order to have the Cinderella, You got to have the big dogs to pull all the numbers. So, yeah, the idea, and people thought, oh, they're going to separate. They were never going to separate. It was, they could if they absolutely had to, but they didn't want to. What they wanted was their governance. They wanted the ability to do all these things and change these things. You're going to see division rules change. Like they've been held to only having 2 divisions per conference, and you couldn't have more. And they couldn't get that rule changed for the life of them. The Division I committee it is what it is. It's a political animal.
Right.
So they're going to change that. And you're going to have more, postseason tournaments in football. I think you're going to see some rules for that for NIL contracts.
Okay.
You might see them actually have, fingers crossed here, one official unit, like the autonomous.
You mean for officials?
Yes.
For college football officials.
They might have like a governing body over that.
I
don't know.
You can only hope.
There's a lot of things they could do, and things that, everyone tends to think of the negative.
Right.
Fear takes hold, and that's natural. We do that naturally. But there's a lot of good that this could do too.
Well, I think the official thing is way overdue. I mean, decades overdue. I still can't believe we're dealing with Big Ten officials and Big 12 officials.
It's clunky.
It sounds so archaic when they announce at a championship game, right? We're going to be watching football next Monday night, and right before the game, they're going to announce this is a mixed crew of the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12. I mean, come on. They're all playing football. We assume they're calling the same games. They need to be unified and all certainly being taught the same rules in the same way.
That's the big one. But there is also that level of influence that their conferences have on them. Like, people want to say it doesn't exist, but it does.
Sure.
Even if it's not spoken to,
Of course it
who's
does. Yeah.
paying you, who's hired you, and you're kind of sitting there going, that guy said this thing to me, and I'm kind of, there's ways to kind of do soft pressure. So having that be under one authority, I think that would be huge.
Okay. Both Clint and Joe Z informed me that it's not a mixed crew. It is actually an SEC crew for the final. So thank you very much for letting me know that.
The SEC has
I
made it to the CFP final.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. They're all the same as it is.
Yeah.
They're all wearing stripes. All right. So if you've been listening to this and you have questions or comments about any of this stuff we've just been talking about, make sure you start putting those questions and comments in the comment section. And at the end, after we're done talking through our next section, I will go through and we'll be bringing up those questions. And certainly, I'm quite certain that Immaculate will be happy to answer your questions. And because this is what he lives and breathes every day, as we know. So I invite you guys all to do that in the interim. Let's move to the second piece of this discussion. We wanted to talk culture, and specifically culture in, I don't know if you want to just talk football, or did you want to talk culture in general for collegiate sports?
Well, we're talking football because that's what's going on now. But that
Okay.
you could extrapolate that even further to mean all sports, right? Like,
Okay.
in fact, in the other sports, it probably matters even more. The more money there is, the more chance that's going to be a straight influence.
Right.
But in other sports, definitely when you walk into there and you start to meet people in there and you get a feel for something, right? The vibe. This is the culture. When you look at a guy like Dillingham in Arizona State, and I'm risking bias when I say that here because I live here locally, but there's a reason why he's, there's guys now coming over to join him and why he gets a lot of talk about it from them. He's building a culture that's a little bit younger and speaks to these kids. You've got to have something that they are attracted to besides just the money, because there's always going to be someone that offers more money. So while we enter in the age of money and everyone thinks money is going to rule it at all, we might actually be proven that the opposite is the case. Because
let's talk culture really quick.
Yes.
Let me interrupt you, because I just want to cut to the quick on culture, because I think it's something that my school does well.
Yes, it
right.
does.
BYU has a long tradition of building huge culture warriors as they come in. It's a religious university, and to come there, you have to be a little off kilter in general. And in specificity, it means that you're wired a little bit different. You don't have the same. I don't want to say you don't have the same risks. Everybody has the same risks, but it certainly they're handled differently at each university. At BYU, it's a religious institution, a lot of faith. There are religious courses you have to take. So it takes a little bit of a different warrior to go to BYU to play football. You're not going to necessarily get the same type of culture up at the University of Utah, who's had the same coach for over 20 years, somebody that's a proven winner. Yet last year they ran into a buzzsaw that was the Big 12 that they never saw coming. And I would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, being from the outside, but I think there was a definite culture change from the Pac-12 and the way they did business, and coming to a Big 12 where they do things a little bit differently. How do you perceive that these culture differences happen, not just on the micro level, not on the individual school level, but actually as it covers all of college football? Because you're talking now NIL, transfer portal, very lenient transfer rules, and culture has to be the underpinning of that, or else what are we doing here? Doesn't it?
Yeah, because look, where we're going into, we've been in the Wild West. It's been, pretty wild, money getting thrown around everywhere. But there's going to be caps now. Like the bigger programs could probably go over those caps, but they're agreeing not to. So you're going to have schools, you're going to have multiple offers to some of these guys. So what's going to be the deciding factor if all those offers are pretty close to the same thing?
Right.
You got to have something special. When that guy comes in there, because these are kids, man. We're talking, some of these guys are making these decisions. They're freshmen in college making this decision. Like, as much as you say, well, they're adults. Well, no, I mean, come on now. they're adults, but they're not matured.
Right.
Like, you got to have something that really kind of pulls to them. That, and once you get them in there, you need to have something that holds them, because you're not going to be able to do it like the old days, where if they get you to sign on the dotted line, you're stuck there for 3 years.
Right.
There's no more of that. Like, they can turn around and leave you in the next year. We're seeing this year, they're turning around and leaving 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not years anymore. It's
not
sometimes
even
days.
Yeah, it's you have to have something that makes these kids come in there and say, "Yep, this is where I want to be." And that, to me, that's why I say culture is now going to be king. It was always a big deal, but as we go into the age of money, I think we're about to find out with these contracts and with these caps. Think about the NFL. Any sport that has the salary cap,
Mm-hmm.
it actually causes parity. And then you look at baseball that doesn't have that, and that's where football is like what Major League Baseball is. Where college football is going, in my opinion, is going to be much more like the NFL. And that's why I said, for Big 12 fans, just hold on. Just hold on. Your days are coming. And you look at California taking that kid from Oregon. There's your perfect example.
Yeah, that's a shocker too, because Cal's not exactly been burning down
5-star
hedges with.
They're going to be able to pay out the same much as Oregon.
Right, right.
And they're going to be able to start.
We'll have to see if he gets the coaching to be successful, right? That's a whole separate issue. He could go there and die. And
will he stay there for a year?
Yeah,
it'll
be interesting to see if he goes through. Now, there's one more transfer portal window. I believe it's in April. Is that right?
Yeah, but they're talking about closing it down.
May. They're talking about for next year, but no, I don't think that would affect this year's timing.
Probably not.
But yes, that's right. You go to a place where the grass might be greener in your mind. You're getting more money, whatever it might be, but then you go there and you lose. How many kids are going to want to go and stay at a losing program? If you're good enough, whether your team wins or not, you'll just find another place to go play football, won't you?
Yeah, and the example I like to use for this is the guy who was at Texas. I'm trying to remember his name. Malik. Went to Duke, got a payday. Seemed to find out that the culture there, which Duke has a very significant culture, but it's not going to be for everybody. Found out that it wasn't for him. And where does he go? He decides to go to Oregon State. And says when he went there, he felt like he was wanted, loved. Like, the culture got him.
Yeah.
He's going to get paid less. I mean, Duke is now paying a guy from Tulane to come in there, and they're going to pay him $4 million a year.
I know, it's crazy.
I think Malik Murphy's going to get like 1.5 at Oregon State. The culture won. So, that is one of the big examples to use. And I know got Clint Moses in chat right now talking about it. You build that culture, and some of these guys, they go for the money, and then they come to find out, okay, you still got to live every day. You got to go through this experience every day. And 2 million, 3 million, whatever you might have been getting is a lot. So is 1.5 million.
Well, we saw DJ go to Florida State, and that didn't exactly turn out very well.
It can go badly for you.
Right?
You have to be somewhere where you're going to feel good about it, and you're going to enjoy going there and doing that every day. Right. If it's a chore, if it's a task for you to do that every day at a place, you're not going to be your best. You're just not.
And I think the thing that stands out to me about culture is it's code for something else. It means a place that you want to be, you want to live, you want to be a part of. And a place like Corvallis is a great place to build culture. I would argue a place like Provo is a great place to build culture. Is Miami a culture stop? I find that hard to believe. It could be
for the right guy,
for the right person.
I look at a guy like Beck who drives around a Lamborghini already.
Yeah, but he's not going for culture though. He's going for the Benjamins.
Yeah, I mean, there's
starting, and he wanted to be out of Georgia. There's lots of things that he was going for. Am I being a little bit flippant with culture, saying not Miami? Yeah, of course I am. I'm just totally playing around. But every school has to have something they can sell. And I think you can look down through the history of college football and find the places there aren't good culture stops because they don't win very much. They don't teach the same. They don't teach the same teams, things. They don't keep the same coaching staffs in place. Everybody's always getting
That's a big part of it
fired
too.
and turned over. Versus you want to go to the places like University of Utah, where Kyle Whittingham's around for 20 years, and you know what you're going to get when you go to that place. Coach Gundy, Oklahoma State, he's had a great place for people to go and play football for years and years too. So I would just like everybody to think it's not all about money. Is it a lot about money? Sure. You'd be
Another good
dumb not to
example
say
is
that.
Penn
Go
State.
ahead.
You know, those two running backs who decided to stick around and stay behind, that they might get like 400,000, 500,000 there, which is a considerable amount. They might have gotten 600 to 800 in the NFL. And so people are saying, "Oh, that's a stupid move. You're losing out on money." When it's 600 to 800,000 versus zero, yeah, that's a tough choice to stand up against. But if it's the place that you love and you want to be and you just fell short and you're like, we need to run this back, and hell, I'm still going to make 400, 500,000 versus, just a couple 100,000 less, that's a little bit easier pill to swallow. You're still going to get paid good, but that's where you want to be. So, a guy like him, people talk about firing that head coach. I don't get it. Man. If you can keep those guys and Aller and keep that team together.
You talking about Franklin now?
Yeah.
Right.
I think he's a culture guy. I think they need to give him the time to find the right people to run the offense, to run the defense, because he may not be that good at that.
If I took out culture of winning and said that wasn't a culture, and I think you can make an argument it is or it isn't. But if I just say the culture of winning isn't a culture in the way we're using the word, what is Ohio State?
That's a really good question.
Because I would tell you right now, if Ryan Day doesn't win the Natty, there still is some part of that fan base that will say he needs to be gone because he can't beat Michigan.
Don't want to piss off the Ohio State fans in the crowd, but it's one of those that I'm a little worried about in the future. Not so much because they're going to have a lot of third-party NIL money. A lot.
Well, of course, yeah.
But from some of the difference, like that team is a $20 million team. We know that, right?
Right.
Okay, well, that's going to become much more feasible for a lot of these other teams that are now going to be able to do that with athletic money, like Arizona State. They've pulled the athletic department into the university so that they could use more university funds to fund this without, the funny problem of having to loan the athletic department money. I think that's going to actually become a trend. And you're going to see a lot of schools all of a sudden be able to do the same thing and spend this kind of money and buy these kind of players. So if they don't have a culture in place to really keep these guys and they're really just guys chasing the money, what's going to keep some of them from taking off?
I would argue that the culture of excellence, which you might term as winning, but it's certainly not of money, exists at some of these top programs that they shouldn't have a very long stick. If I'm an Ohio State guy, yeah, your team this year it's hot at the right time. You can make an argument, though, earlier in the year, they certainly didn't have the fire in the belly when they played Michigan, or they didn't play like it, at least. If I'm an Ohio State fan, I love the idea that you're always wanting to do better and holding your head coach accountable to high turnarounds of football excellence.
Yeah.
And that is a culture, right? And I wish my school had more of that, right? Kalani Sitake is building a culture more of love and appreciation and brotherhood that aren't trite terms at BYU, by the way. Those are actual things that you don't find other places. So if you're going to BYU, it's certainly not for a huge paycheck. You're going there. There has to be another component.
Sure.
At some of these other schools, I think everybody should want to be the let's get rid of Ryan Day if he doesn't perform type place. I don't think 4 years losing to Michigan is something you can just throw out the window and say it doesn't matter, regardless of whether you win a championship or not, because they have such high standards. So if I'm any of the Ohio State guys watching this right now, and Jared was the last one that I called out at the beginning of the show, and if I'm him, I'm thinking, yeah, we might go out and win this, but is it because of Ryan Day, or is it because Chip Kelly called a great offense for 4 weeks, right? There might be other reasons why those things are happening, and I wouldn't say that it's just carte blanche, no matter what, that he should keep his job. So everybody's got a different measurement. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, there's a bunch of Ohio kids that are on that team too. And I think that's probably the glue, because those kids, like the defender who got the fumble and scored at the end of the game there.
The linebacker,
he's a kid,
right?
Grew up. You got to have those kind of guys.
Yes.
That are just die hard for it. So, and those are the guys you have meeting with the new guys coming in, right? You want them to immediately feel that energy. So yes, there is a definite culture of Ohio State. Like, I don't mean to be denigrating that term. Like, it's
I don't
huge.
think you were. I don't.
It's
think
just
you were.
There comes a point though where some of these guys you bring in from the outside for big money, have they bought in? And that I don't know. I don't know. If they have, then there is 100% a culture that's on top of everyone else, because you can get those guys and you can get them to buy in to where they don't want to go somewhere else. That to me is the standard.
I think Jack Sawyer is his name, right?
Yes.
Jack Sawyer's the linebacker.
Yeah. Because if you can bring in those big guys, big pay, and then they don't want to leave, you have culture.
It's a good point. All right. Well, let's do a quick review. Everybody keep leaving us your comments and questions. Certainly, we've covered quite a bit of ground here tonight, and I know we don't have enough time for everything we do, but I do want to leave some time for you guys to ask questions, because this is a feedback show. Certainly on the sit down, we try to spend as much time as we can answering your comments and questions, and Immaculate and I are here certainly to do that. But anything that comes to mind as we talked about, not only the way that college football is run and college sports has been managed from the rules and regulation standpoints, which we talked about earlier, to what is culture and what does that mean for your individual school. And every school has different measurement for what their culture is. And I think one day what might need to happen is there needs to be a national poll put out about what is culture and what stands to reason and is most important at one school might not be the same value at another school. If you take out all the obvious things like winning, and you put it as in some other terms. So let's run through some of your questions and comments, everybody. So keep giving them in there. I've marked a bunch and we'll continue to mark them as the show goes on. But I know Immaculate is here to answer questions, and certainly I won't get in the way of that. So let's start with the few right off. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing for these guys to chew on while they're coming up with this, and maybe they'll have questions over, but we talk a lot of realignment. And one thing we just kind of wanted to say to everyone that came out right before the show is that the NCAA just passed a new rule, which is going to kind of sounds like it's doing away with some of the time requirements for reclassifying within Division I, which means an FCS school that wants to move to FBS, or especially like when we're going to have these new subdivision situation that gets made, which is probably what this is leading to. But they're doing away with some of the time requirements. So for those of you who want to really kind of go deep into realignment, now you can maybe look at an FCS school that wouldn't have to wait 2 years to join an FBS team. So some folks probably kind of know who I'm thinking about on there, but I'm kind of curious to see who others on there are thinking about when they hear that.
We'll see if anybody has deep thoughts on that or not.
We'll see.
I think we might. Why don't you just come out and say Sacramento State?
I mean, that's who's on my mind.
I know,
but it's not just them.
It's kind of ambiguous. The definition, though, what you're talking about. I'm not sure most people understand what you're talking about. Reclassifying. You're talking about teams moving from FCS to FBS.
There's a 2-year requirement.
There's a 2 on top of additional monies
Yes,
that
$5
have
million
to be paid to move from one to the next, and they're talking about getting rid of those, or certainly abridging or amending those rules.
Yes.
And Sacramento State would fit that paradigm. So
yeah, because
and there's others that are out there too.
Right.
And North Dakota State, Montana State, they certainly are also in the same boat.
Yeah, because the Pac doesn't have 2 years now in order to fill that
They've
slot,
only got 1 year
so that
left.
they don't get desanctioned by the NCAA.
Right.
So
They're
it seems to
desperate.
kind of be helping them out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's Sacramento State. It could be name an FCS school that they might want. You know, there's
Right.
talk of Tarleton State, whoever it might be. But it makes it a little more possible.
Where is Tarleton State?
That's in Texas.
That's what I thought.
I don't know exactly where it's at. I know it's part of the A&M system.
Yeah, no, I think it is in
But
Texas.
it's
You're
definitely
right.
in
I don't know where
Texas.
it's at.
I don't remember where though.
All right, let's get to some things. Yeah, Texas State to the Pac is one of the latest rumors, although I haven't seen any smoke on that recently. The last notification I saw was the Pac had already, let's see, Mountain West had already invited Texas State, but I don't think we've heard anything about the Pac-12 inviting them specifically. Unless you have information, I don't know.
I know another guy on the show is saying that's what he's hearing.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not. For me, I still have a difficult time believing it because of the same logistical issues that were a problem for Texas to join the Pac-12 are there for Texas State. Now, the difference is Texas State would be moving from a Sun Belt, which is there's actually tiers in G5. The Sun Belt's at the bottom because it does not have really a TV deal at all. And so they'd be moving to a conference where they'd be getting a lot of money, so that moves you up. Maybe they'd be finding that to be worthwhile. But for a full member, you're talking about sending all of your sports 1 to 2 time zones west for every single game, and the issues that causes for your student athletes, you know, like on the return trips and whatnot. So it'll cause a lot of difficulties for them, but maybe they've decided that it's worth it.
Yeah, I could see that possibly happening. Timothy Green checks in a little bit late to the party, but we're glad you're here, Timothy. Timothy is one of the sergeant at arms of the College Football Mafia Network, and we appreciate you being here, Timothy. Play as everyone. Hit that. Sorry. I'm not sure what play means, Timothy, but everyone hit that like button, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much. I appreciate it if you do that. Make sure you subscribe. Follow both Immaculate and I on Twitter. Turn on your notifications. That's really, really important, so you know when our shows and certainly information comes out on our tweets. And then, consider becoming a member of the Mafia family. Do that. Hit the $sign next to the comment section. You can leave us a super chat, or certainly I'd even prefer before, in lieu of a super chat, become a member. And join us here because we go month to month. And every month this coming off season, we're going to be having new and fresh products and videos coming out, and we really appreciate and want to share those things with you guys. Certainly, as we go down the line, you guys are more than welcome. We encourage you to stick around. So thanks for being here, Timothy. Thanks for being here tonight. Let's see here. Clay Johansson, Big Mountain say they are talking.
Yep,
I don't know who Big Mountain is. Do you know?
Yeah, Big Mountain Podcast. I didn't want to give you any shout outs to any other shows on the show, but since you brought it up. The Big Mountain Podcast, JY.
Okay.
He's pretty dialed in with the Mountain West, and that's kind of gotten him dialed in with the whole Mountain West versus Pac situation.
Okay, so what's he talking about there?
He's saying that he's hearing that Texas State and the Pac are in talks.
Okay. Well, I would love to see Texas State in the Pac-12. I want the Pac-12 to survive and thrive, as everybody knows. Let's see here. Joe Z says Pac State Conference would be a great name. I think it maybe was a name somewhere along in our long yesteryear, but certainly they've had different terms to describe the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac, whatever you want to call it. Who knows where we end up with the Pac-12.
If everyone's a state university, then everyone can claim sovereign immunity.
Well, there you go. There you go. Sovereign immunity. There you go. Everybody loves that. Brett Taylor, the NFL can't control how much money State Farm pays Patrick Mahomes. How can the NCAA control how much Nike pays an Oregon QB or any other player? They can't,
No, they
Brett.
can't.
Third party, they don't control anything. What we were talking about is the 20.5 million that the schools can pay directly to athletes. That is a limit. And even that limit, there's a possibility that gets challenged in court and gets thrown out. But right now we're just talking about the universities having a limitation. There's no third party limitation.
Now, possibility is that they're going to, now the big name players are probably not going to agree to this. But I think with a lot of the players, they're going to sign NIL deals with the school. So if that's the case, then yes, Phil Knight might have to actually go to the athletic department in order to pay for the NIL rights for a player. You just see where I'm going?
I do.
Like, now the major players who are, can go wherever, they could probably come into that room and say, I'm not signing that with you. And they'll be like, okay, that's fine. And so then they might not get paid by the athletic department. Does that make? So we really need to see how this plays out, but it is possible that, for a lot of these players, you actually will have to go to the athletic department and pay them to have and use the NIL rights in any type of advertising or whatever kind of campaign with one of the players.
Yeah, there has been several schools. One I was commenting on just yesterday, and I need to write down one of these schools when they pop up because it's happened before and I didn't have the names of the universities off the tip of my tongue. But there are some universities that are rolling in all NIL into the university, which I asked Mitt Winter about why in the world would they do that. They would just be limiting what they can distribute as a university. If you take away the third party unlimited rule. So I cannot figure out why universities, except for just from a compliance standpoint, they want to make sure they're meeting all the rules and regulations. Why some of these named universities, and there's some big ones that have started doing it, have announced that they're going to move those monies in-house. Do you have an explanation why anybody would want to do that?
Remember, these NIL collectives, they get their money from various means. When these athletic departments declare one collective to be an official, they would give benefits. If you give money to them, if you donate to them, you'll get some benefits from the athletic department, like merch or deal or first chance deals on tickets or whatever. Like they give benefits as if you're giving them the money. I know for sure I was stopping that in June.
Stopping what?
Their direct deals with the Swarm Collective in terms of if you give them money, this is what you'll get from the athletic department. That's done. It's going to end. And they're not the only one. There's Colorado is now doing that. They're one by one. They're all starting to come out and say this. So there's not going to be any such thing as an official collective anymore. And so people were donating money, individuals like you and me, just donating money to the collectives to then give to for students to play with, because that's what they were most interested in having happen.
Right.
And the athletic departments were noticing a lot of money was no longer coming to them.
Well,
and
of course.
That's a big part of this is they want those individual donations to come back to them. They want donations from companies in the area that are just, flat donations to the school. They want those to come back to the school.
But they will lose out a recruiting advantage because they won't have any other monies going to these players.
They're going to be paying that directly.
To the 20.5 million
until that gets raised.
Okay, but today it hasn't been raised.
And that's why I think there's still going to be collectives. There's still going to be NIL deals. I don't know the specifics in terms of how harsh some of these contracts are going to be, right? What they're going to be allowed to do on the outside on their own. I don't know.
So what you're imagining is still a two-party system. There would still be a third-party collective. It just wouldn't have any association with the university.
Yeah,
so it's really just a naming thing, is what.
Yeah, the official ones are lifted up above others, right? It's not a competitive free market.
Right. BYU has two. One that is official in partner with the university, and one that is run by a third party.
Yeah, and so they'd both then just be third parties. And you might have other ones rise up because
Okay.
basically whoever can get the deals to then offer to players, they're basically like agencies.
It's really
They're just
unmanageable, isn't it?
it's going to change a lot. I don't know how exactly. It's going to
Yeah,
change a lot. I mean, they're
I
almost
don't know either.
really just like agencies now, agencies for players. When you're an agent, you go out and you get them deals, right? Like your agent, if you're an NFL player, he goes and gets you deals, NIL deals, things to do. So are these collectives just going to become an agent, or are they going to go away because other agents are now in the business that are much better at doing this?
I don't know.
So that's one of the unknowns. Is there's going to be other stuff. How it gets worked out, what these contracts with the athletic departments are going to be like, we're going to have to learn this together.
They must see some advantage to doing it. I just can't.
I just think they want
couldn't
they
tell me
want the
what it would
individual
be.
donations to come back into the athletic departments.
Okay.
That's the
Well,
big thing.
they can hope all they want. I don't know that it's going to make a difference, but
It is when you're no longer getting the deals that you would get with the athletic department in terms of tickets and merch and all that stuff for giving to the collective, you're no longer going to get.
yeah, but they're gonna undercut any third party money that's going to be going to the players because they won't pay it. They'll just assume the money's going to the university, and that'll be taking care of the money to the players.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you? I'm not asking you this. I'm saying to the world.
Yeah.
How does it make sense that right now leaving it ambiguous is a win, in my opinion? I don't see a major. Nobody's been able to explain to me why it's an advantage to moving one of the third party NIL services inside the university when everybody knows money's only being paid out a couple different ways. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Best I
see,
could come up with, and this is, take it for what you want, because I don't want to disparage any collective. But if you're a major donor or like a company that wants this to be part of like marketing and managing, I think there's at some point in time more trust in the athletic department about where the money's going, how much of it's being used for this, and how much you're taking out for yourself. Whereas a private collective, it's nonprofit or whatever, but there's still people who are taking from it. Whereas like a state university per se, whatever they use that money on, that's public knowledge. Like they're going to be able to reach that, find that out, see where it's going, see percentages. I just think some sponsorships, some companies, some people would want that direct relationship with the athletic department versus via a third party. Because remember, when the more money you give to them, the more influence you have.
There's less you can spend out though. There's only so much you can outgo. I don't care how many people are giving money to the university. Mm-hmm. If there's a limit, a cap on what you can pay out,
right.
The money could all be sitting there. Now, I mean, they'll use it. I guarantee you the university will turn around and use it, but it won't be going to more than just a few players in the major payouts.
Well,
whereas you're not going to get $10 million from a university to pay a quarterback to come and play for a year.
To some degree, they're gonna have to give some room for third parties to do that, as you say, to fill it out. And I don't even know if that necessarily means from a collective. That just might mean like, okay, you can go out and get yourself an agent now, and they can get you deals. And what I'm thinking that what athletic departments are going to do is they're going to hand out the same thing that NFL teams do: official sponsor. So there's like one car dealership, one of this, one of that.
Right.
And that's what they're going to – so then those guys can then say, we are the official this of whatever. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that.
All right. I think time will tell too. We'll see. If in 2 years you see a lot of divestiture from the 3PLs and the university with NIL practices, and now you have more of the third parties popping up again, I think we would know that experiment didn't work too well because they weren't able to pay the players enough money to field a team. We won't know. We won't know.
They'll evolve. They'll evolve with that as it plays out.
Glenn Hanna, angry duck in the house. Chip Kelly at OC should be where he stays. Recruiting and personal interactions
No,
aren't his strongest skill traits. Dissecting X's and O's, that's his specialty. I would argue that Steve Sarkisian is in the exact same realm. I think he's a fantastic, arguably the best OC in all of college football. Not necessarily the greatest head coach. Some are suited and some are not. We'll have to see about Sarkisian, but certainly we have seen where Chip Kelly has thrived is at the OC position. And if he's making $4 million to be an OC, what's the reason to become a head coach?
less stress, good pay. You're living a good life. You're still doing recruiting and stuff like that, but you're not
Right.
held responsible. Like if you're that great of a play caller and an offense coordinator and putting that together, your head coach is not going to hold you to as much at task to do the other stuff.
Right. You just come in and do your job, and you don't
You're
worry
here
about
for
all the
this.
headaches.
I want you to focus on this. Don't go out and recruit for me because you're just going to ruin it. You know what I mean? Like that's a great thing. Okay, great.
I think he could recruit. I don't
sure
think
he
recruiting
can. You know what I'm
was a
saying,
challenge.
though?
I do.
I'm not saying he's that. I'm just saying that's like the perfect spot because that's like one of the most tedious, hard things to do as a coach is to go on the recruiting trail.
Yep.
And if he can get paid $4 million to just sit in office and figure out offenses and figure out the defenses they're going against, that's pretty damn good.
You know, the greatest offensive coordinator of all time was George S. Patton. He could go out and lead an army, but ask him to be the grand poobah, the guy doing the politicking and everything that it took. He couldn't do it. He simply couldn't do those functions. Were not in his toolbox. And George S. Patton would be the guy you'd want out doing the fighting for you for sure. But asking him to come back and kiss babies and talk good about allies, that wasn't his strongest point.
No, he was not.
Fergie, FF18 Buffs. NDSU, North Dakota State, and Sacramento State are good candidates because they have the support. I would say Montana State has support as well.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I bring up Sacramento State is their own president is now out on X.
He has a little bit, hasn't he?
He's even been responding to a couple of my posts. And he's been around.
Well, it tells you he's slumming if he's posting on your post.
Absolutely.
Matt Schnuck checking in. That would be MU. Is that Marshall? No. Who is that?
I think it's Marquette.
Marquette, thank you. I knew it was another. Yeah, Marquette, and then is that the Beavers?
I don't know. It looks like
I don't know the other one. Hedgehogs. Matt Schnuck in the house. Good to see you, Matt. I sure hope the portal is moved after bowl season. So let's talk about that. That news came out today. They're talking about yesterday. The coaches are proposing changing the portal to one period, not two. One period for 10 days. Starting, I believe, July 2nd or something like that, and running for 10 days to July 12th or 13th every year. A lot of people are pushing back on that. The coaches want a 10-day window. The players want 5 windows of 10 days.
Of course
I don't think we're going to get probably either of those per se, but something needs to change for certain. The December time is just crazy.
That's something that the autonomous conferences could rule on once they get their power.
That will happen. I can almost promise you that will happen.
Yeah.
Joe Z, good to see you, Joe. Another valuable of the Mafia family. They should place caps on school spending, but not how much a player can earn.
Yeah,
so we're talking salary caps. University spending without position payment, which is basically what he's talking about there. If you were, and really quick, short answer, if you were to guess on salary caps coming into college football at all or zero, what would you guess?
I think that they're just going to cap athletic departments.
Okay.
Because I think what you're going to see is they're going to want balance. They're going to want like in Arkansas. Arkansas is already kind of going ahead of this. I think they've kind of given up on really becoming a heavy challenger in football, and they've decided we're gonna be a top-notch basketball program. That's how we're going to earn our way in this conference. because they're spending like $1 million plus on every single player that's going to be a starter on that team. So you're already taking $5 million at least out of your 20. So that's a quarter of it. Plus any other players that they might pay a little bit to in order to be on that team. So
Right.
I think that they're just going to cap an athletic department, and then each athletic department can determine what matters the most to them. Where do they really want to compete in this regard? And then they're going to have to decide, are they having contracts with these individual players? What are you going to put in there? Like, yeah, you can go sign a deal, but we have some type of approval. Like, if we have rights on your NIL, we don't want you going out and doing a deal with, dare I say, like OnlyFans. Because that's a part of, like, someone's on an NFL team. Yeah, you can go out and get other deals, but they can object. Does that make sense? Like,
I
they can
do
object
understand what you're saying.
because they control, like, they have a
I
say
don't
in
know.
your
I think
NIL.
that's a free speech thing. I don't know if you can get in that
It
business.
is, but
or
if
not.
you sign a contract,
right,
you are personally giving up some of that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
that's what.
I can put it this way. There are some places you simply couldn't do a contract like that because there's morals clauses involved of being a student of those institutions.
Yes.
I'm not sure every institution. I guess they could institute them overnight, but you have to meet the rules for whatever organization you belong to, and restricting what I think might get ambiguous.
Yeah, it's not going to be like too much. Remember, they want these kids to have these deals to be there because that means they're staying. And like you're saying, they're capped. So there's only so much they can give these kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're going to work with their agents. They're going to work with whoever is doing that, whoever's getting them extra money. But they're going to want some degree of saying, like, we don't want our players being involved with this or that. It's a bad image for them. It's a bad image for the school. It doesn't mean we don't want them involved in anything.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of tough to say at this point in time where that balance is. But I do think to some degree they are going to have a say, and that's people saying, "Oh, we want them to be employees." Okay, understand everything that comes with that.
My guess is between the two, I think there will be a salary cap and it'll be by position. That's
Could
my
be.
guess. I think the easiest way to control it is depending on the position you run, just like you do with the NFL has a salary cap for positions. No, check that. They have a salary cap for the entire squad in the NFL.
They have agreements with
I
the
think
union for certain
right,
positions.
right. But that again, they're in a union at that point. They can control those things. They don't have a union in college football, at least not yet. So I think the best thing they could do is probably supply a guidance. But we'll see. I don't know. It'd be great to have something. I think some controls need to be put in, whether that's by position or by program. That's not for me to guess, but I would love to see one, at least for the university level. I don't care one way or the other. You just need something. $10 million for one player is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mark Bowman, another member of the Mafia family, somebody who's given us a $10 super chat, which we thank you very much for, Mark. The University of Iowa has well over 100 international student athletes in its athletic programs. They are not eligible for NIL. I think that's a joke. Will the House decision address this inequity? I haven't heard anything about international students.
I heard something about Canadians. Like that got changed. I don't know that they'd become eligible. I don't know how that works. Like other countries, they have other laws and rules for their citizens. Like that's not necessarily just a U.S. thing.
Right.
It's other countries too have rules over their own citizens, and they're not always just free. So I don't know. That's a really good point. I saw him put that up, and it said so. We're gonna find out in April. This thing's gonna come out, and we're gonna know what that is. I certainly hope so. I think that would be a great thing for this country to do. drawing in, these student athletes. They're going to be skilled as after they graduate. To have them be able to be empowered that because you're just going to be able to draw more in. And some people might be like, we don't want to do that. Well, why not? If they're better, then they're better. Like, this is athletic competition. This is one of those situations where I'm like, well, if you're better, you're better. I mean, for everyone that comes over here, yeah, someone loses a spot, but there's other schools. Go find another spot.
If you're a student, you should get paid.
Yeah.
I mean,
so hopefully this gets solved.
Yeah, definitely. I think it does come to the rightness doctrine. I think people, if they're providing a service, they should be paid for it. Daniel Gorby, good to see you, Daniel. It's been a minute since I've seen you. Happy holiday and Happy New Year to you. Dillingham is a great coach. FSU hated to lose him as our OC. He proved to be a good as a head coach in HC. I think he did a great job this last year.
I think it's one of those situations where some coaches are better in certain locations than they would be anywhere else. Him there, I don't know if he's as good as anywhere else as he is there because he cares so much.
Well, yeah, he's a graduate, right?
James Franklin at Penn State. To me,
that was his job for life as far as he was concerned.
Yeah, and they just gave him a new deal. I think he's at like, what they say, $5.8 million with a whole bunch. I mean, basically, if he does what he did this year, he's going to be getting upwards of like $8, $9, $10 million. So if he performs, he's getting paid at the top level.
Yeah,
and I think you're going to see that more actually, because you're seeing like you saw some coaches who did bad. What did they have to do? Oh, they have to pay money out to the NIL collective. It's really it's taking money back from guys saying either you do that or we fire you. And I think go ahead.
I was just going to say I think performance incentives and limits need to be added to coaching.
That's the new future. I think their base pay is going to be lower and it's going to be more heavily loaded with performance. Yeah.
On top of the fact that they're not going to be buying out coaches who aren't doing the job.
That's why, because they can't do that as much. So
they're going to pay them less to stick around because they're not going to pay you to go away. Anyway, let's see here. Fergie again. College football is now similar to European soccer leagues now. SEC, Premier League, England, Big Ten is La Liga. ACC is Serie A, and Big 12 is Bundesliga, Germany. Boy, that would be fantastic.
I think I get what he's saying here.
And CFP is the Champions League.
Mm-hmm. Because the Premier League in England has a little more across the board, and that shows itself in the Champions League as they have the most invites. The Big Ten has arguably now like some of the biggest value programs in it, but as you get to the bottom, there's some that aren't as valuable. I think that's what La Liga is like. There's some big programs in there, and then they're competing against some programs that are not. So it's actually a really good one. And Big 12, Bundesliga, Germany, there's not any really big programs, but it's very competitive. I don't know France very well, so I'll just have to take his word on that because he got the other ones right.
I think the most balanced league is actually the Premier League. So if you're going from a competition standpoint, it's
very balanced this year.
The SEC?
The SEC was
Big 12. I think Big 12 is more balanced top to bottom than the SEC.
I wouldn't argue it, but I would say that the SEC had more parity this year than it's had in.
That I agree with.
And whether or not it's more or less than the Big 12, I'm going to leave that to the person to have their own subjective opinion. I just think that this has been the most parity-driven SEC that we've seen in a long time. And you could say that about the Big 12, too. So that's a good debate point.
Knowles76. Good to have you here, Knowles76. Make sure you become a frequent follower and viewer of our shows. Our next one will be, by the way, programming note, Big Freakin' Friday show would be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be previewing the championship game on Monday. And maybe tomorrow I will be having a show. I'm not 100% sure I can do it yet, but a show previewing the championship game with nobody else than the Four Horsemen podcast. Dylan will be here, and we're going to be talking about whether Notre Dame has a shot with Ohio State. That'll be a fun
They
show
got a shot.
if I can pull it off. That'll be on me trying to get that done. Norvell, if he gets fired, gets his money back. His agent makes sure. You know what that he's saying?
I think he's saying that if Norvell gets fired, he's gonna have to give his money back because he's
He's going to have to get his money back, or the university gets their money back.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, one or the other.
Somebody gets he was the first back. One. They made him pay $1 million.
Did they?
Now, he said he was doing it. He was.
That's what happens when you go 13-0 and 1-13 or whatever it was.
There was a lot of talk of him getting fired, and then next thing you know, I'm giving $1 million to NIL.
Yeah, him and Mike Gundy for sure.
We got you, buddy. You had to do that or get fired.
Steve Ojai, Florida, my local labor negotiator. That's what Steve does. If you don't know, he very much has all the experience in labor negotiations, what he did for 50 some odd years. So I defer to him usually on these labor dispute type questions. But he says, unless one of the larger unions, we know who they are, sees it beneficial to represent college athletes, it will be a monumental task to get all college athletes to unionize. Process isn't easy.
Plus, if you unionize, you're getting employee status, and there's other. I don't know if they want to open up that bottle, so to speak. Like, I don't know enough about it to really say for sure. He knows more, but I would caution these students. Make sure you know what you're doing, and you're not just listening to people who are going to make money off of that if you do it.
Yeah.
And it's fine if that's the right choice. That's fine if those people are doing you a service and you're paying them. But just understand, if you're listening to them right now, they do have their own goals in mind. So I don't know if that's what's best for students.
If we were to jump in a time machine and go back 10 years and see if a union was instituted then, and what the universities and conferences could have gotten for these players or from them, compared to where we are now, it would be a completely different world. Because right now, any union that comes in is going to be heavily in the much more expensive category than if they would have unionized and been given that pleasure 10 years ago. I think they would have gotten a lot more from the athletes. You have any thoughts on that?
It's funny you asked that, because that wraps right around to what we started with on the show. And that's the beginning, the origin of the autonomous conference was 10 years ago, 2014, when the conferences wanted all of this power to deal with this ahead of time, to get ahead of this. And that might actually been something that they would have done, right? We might have all this of taking care of before it became a big problem. There would have never been a house settlement, because they would have created solutions for this before it became a court situation. If this would have been dealt with 10 years ago when they first wanted to, and I know they take a lot of slack, and this is including the Big 12, all the A5. If they had taken care of this then, I'll go even further. The Pac-12 might still exist right now.
Ooh. That's a shot across the bow. Maybe it's possible.
So you could look at the NCAA and say, you might actually be partially responsible for what happened to the Pac-12.
Oh, I think they're 100% responsible.
So when we look at if the Pac-2, the 2-pack is asking for exemption or changes to the rules to allowing an FCS team to come up, they might be like, yeah, we're going to do whatever it takes, because you guys have a history of suing people.
Okay.
So,
Daniel Gorby, Norvell's buyout is $56 million after next year. I think he is going to turn it around. If you had to bet for or against Florida State in 2025, what would your guess be? And yes, I'm writing it down, and I'll hold you accountable next year.
I think I'd bet on
them. Getting to a bowl game or actually competing for a championship? Because their standard, I'm sure, is competing for a championship.
I don't know enough about who's coming in, quarterback stuff, situations, roles. So I have a hard time saying they're going to be, in the CFP or get into a bowl situation, yeah. Getting to New Year's Day one, I think it's certainly possible. If they have a turnaround to where they get all the way up into the CFP again, that would be impressive. But do I think they're going to stay down at the bottom? No. I think they made some mistakes. I think that, and hopefully they learn from them. And if they do learn from them, they're going to be a lot better because of that.
I know college football is better off when Florida State is good.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree. So I think this, it just went off the rails, and once it's off the rails, you're off the rails. Like there's just no getting it back. So he's got a lot of work ahead of him, but I mean, it's Florida State. He's got a lot to work with.
Steve says, Balmer, I'm not that old. 40 years negotiating. Come on, man. Hey, when I saw your picture, when I saw you on our show, Steve, you looked older than dirt. So I was sure that you were 100 years a labor negotiator. I'm just teasing, man. I'm not.
Labor negotiating will probably do that to you.
I was, and that's probably true. I wasn't jumping into your CV. I was just making a generalization, so don't take it personal. I promise. Daniel Gorby says 8-4 for Florida State. Tempest, good to see you, Tempest. Another member of the Mafia family in good standing. Good to see you. It's been a minute. I always like to my face always glows when I see Tempest in the house. So 9-3 is what he says. Knowles 76 says 8-4. So there's some positive thoughts about where Florida State could be next year.
I think that's reasonable.
Yep. Let's see here. Let me scroll up to some more comments we had earlier. I want to make sure that we touch on a few of these. July seems late. What about closer to spring? I wonder what he's talking about there.
No, because they're actually making plans.
Okay, so go ahead.
I think what he's talking about is the start of all of this.
Okay.
I think he's thinking sooner. April is when the House settlement is scheduled to. I'm going to have to say potentially.
It has to be approved by April.
It has to get final approval. That's when they're going to meet in court. Now, there is still a chance that it doesn't get that. But all signs seem to show that this judge is, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say, but for whatever reason, they seem pretty tuned to giving this thing approval.
It's a lady, right?
Yes.
Isn't it a lady?
And she was basically had this force partner because no other judges even wanted to deal with this. And she's the one in the history of like Alston case. She's got all the history in this. So she kind of already came into this knowing the whole deal. And it seems she already gave a preliminary approval. I don't know the difference between that and the final, but it's the same person. And they're all making plans. Like I said, Iowa is ending their relationship, some of the relationship with the official. I know they're doing that in June.
How does she approve it in good standing to have it done when you have all these challenges? There's a bunch of legal challenges.
There are objections, and just like any objection in a court of law, she can uphold it or she can deny it.
Okay, so
I know it sounds too simple, but
if she approves it, let's assume she signs it.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of these entities that currently has some sort of challenge could turn around and actually file suit. That's an injunction to stop it. Is that the process?
Maybe, yeah. You'd have to really get into a lawyer with that. I would say that that's possible and likely, but in terms of what they're doing with this case, they're filing objections. Just like you see it in a court case where a lawyer stands up, oh, I object.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
But
so it's not a full lawsuit. It's just an objection to the ruling being sustained.
Because she was asking for that. She's like, in this time period, I want to receive objections and arguments as to why this shouldn't go through.
Okay.
Personally, I think it's kind of a moot point, and it would have to be one hell of an objection because a lot of what they're saying, she's already got history with this. She already knows. So it's kind of like, it feels like going through the motions. And yes, some of these people might then sue later.
I'm on record to saying I don't think the entire thing ever gets 100% implemented. I think that there's enough legal challenges that there might be parts of it that are instituted, but whether it stands on appeal and appeal.
I'll go real crazy with you, brother.
I don't know.
It might not even get to her. She might not even get to the final approval.
Meaning what?
Congressional action that happens even before that.
Yeah, I don't know. If that
People
happens,
think
it's not going to be in the students' favor if that happens.
which students?
I don't think the put it this way, I think the power is all on the university's side.
Understandable. Here's my
If
point.
anything gets instituted.
The more that goes to these players, the more cost there is to these universities, all this, the more likely these university ADs are to maybe start dropping sports. And when you drop sports, you drop scholarships. So there are some students that I would say might actually really want some type of congressional act that preserves, some aspects of what's going on. Because I do think, maybe not at your Ohio States, not at your Clemson's, but as you go down that line, in order for some of these other schools to keep up with them, they're going to have to cut some other sports. And
certainly.
So students are going to lose scholarships over this unless there is some congressional action. And to me, that's why I talk about it as an impossible good thing. Will they go too far in one way or another? I think they're going to this is going to end up becoming a bipartisan thing. I don't want to go too much into politics. I hate it. But I think it will end up becoming bipartisan. So that means it's going to be pretty down the middle. It's not going to be really too extreme. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that's April. And this whole new government's going to be in place here in just, a matter of days. They're already in the Congress. And there's, already talk about this happening. So if they pass something between now and April, well, maybe she doesn't even get the chance to make a decision. Maybe the whole thing just gets withdrawn. I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Rock and Rant says Immaculate sounds way better tonight than on Greg's show from tin cans to stereo. Also, shout out to the coaches trying to do more things they can't without collective bargaining. He's right there.
Our buddy had some problems on the show with his audio earlier.
No, he's exactly right. It's a YouTube. I'm sorry, it's a Google Voice call. So that's the audio on those isn't great. Anyway, do more things they can't without collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is the one thing that would be the umbrella protection that Immaculate was just talking about. If collective bargaining was brought in or some protections given for the House settlement, then a lot of this goes away. A lot of the things I think would be taken care of. I just find it hard to believe anything happening in the next few months. It's possible.
Because here's the last thing. I don't want to go too far. I know you don't want to either. But if, say, the lawsuits were just to start stacking up after House, like that's where they see this thing going.
Right, of course.
It becomes a too big to fail type of situation. And no one sitting in Congress wants to be the ones responsible to just be sitting there when that thing hits. Talking about universities going bankrupt, unable to pay out on lawsuits. So preemptively passing something that's kind of protects them. Because these are universities. They're not just pro leagues. They're universities, and they serve a very real function in our society. And it would be a huge problem for anyone sitting in Congress if that hit while they're sitting there.
Okay. Stormy Cyclone, we'll get a couple more questions here. Everybody, just so you know, we've got about 5 minutes left. Sorry, we've been in the middle of questions, and I forgot to give everybody the final sign off. We're going to go 5 or 6 more minutes. So if you want your comment to be read at this point, it will have to be a super chat. Other than that, I'm going to see the end of the show out with a few comments that I've got set up here already. So again, make it a super chat, or else we'll just go with what I've already got in the book. Stormy Cyclone saying, Immaculate, in your opinion, what happens in the ACC this week? I don't know why this week.
Because, it's not really this week.
It's by the end of the month.
Yeah. And so, honestly, I don't know. I personally think that there is going to have to be a renegotiated deal. If I'm ESPN and I'm looking at this conference, I'm saying you can't guarantee me that between now and 2036 that you're not going to lose some schools somehow to a court case or whatever. That we feel that there's a risk in this thing as it is. Like, not only to not give you a pay increase, but we actually think that you could lose some of your main draws, and that we can't, in good conscience, opt in to the same deal for that long of a period of time. I think that's the case. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that's crazy talk. Fine, that's okay. But that's, to me, is that they're going to use that risk because they can. That's their job. Like, if they see a way to renegotiate, that's why they created the opt-in in the first place. If they didn't want that opportunity, they wouldn't have asked for it. So I think that there's going to be some kind of deal come out here in the near future. What that entails, I don't know. I'm just saying what happens with the ACC is we find out about them in the ESPN. And then from there, we can say more.
If ESPN has the ability to say opt out, and I've seen different reporting on what the opt in or the opt out even looks like. But if I'm ESPN and I have the ability to get a league that's already on the ropes at a deep discount, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. Now, that they might not want to do that for relationship reasons and other things, but at the end of the day, it's a zero-sum game, and money only goes one direction, and that's out. So we'll have to see where we are at the end of the month. Is it more likely than not that we end up with some sort of continuation of what they've got? Yeah, that's probably where we're going to be. But I think if ESPN really wants to put it to the ACC, they could twist the screws on them, and could tie them down for a lot longer or for a lot less money, because the ACC has no other bidders right now currently, right? Everything is done through ESPN. So we'll have to see. Time will tell. But certainly that's been impending doom for a while, and nothing brings people to the table sooner than emergency and urgency, and that's where we're at right now.
I don't think they dump them fully. I don't think there's an opt-out. It's just a renegotiation.
Yeah. FFH, sorry, Fergie, did Immaculate see the eligibility period question fixed 5 years, or what period could they agree with?
That's a really great question. I'm glad you pulled that one up, because, in my opinion, that is a huge deal for why congressional action could happen. And one of the reasons why I think that'll happen is because once they started fooling with eligibility, first with junior colleges, now they're just talking across the board, period. If I am anyone in the NFL, that makes me sit up. Because once you start having players in college no longer going to the NFL, like after a certain amount of time, getting forced out, at what point in time does all the money start to flow into college and these players just stay? And now you're not getting maybe some of the players into the NFL, and so your skill level slowly starts to deteriorate. If I'm in the NFL right now, I'm getting ahead of this right now. While Congress is actually thinking about doing something, I'm flooding them with cash, saying, whatever you decide, eligibility rules must stay. So I think that there will be eligibility in that deal if there is something out of Congress. 5 years, whatever, I don't know. That seems reasonable, probably. I think that they're not going to want these guys staying in college for so long. Because remember, the longer you stay there and take a spot, that's a spot that some other student's not getting.
Yeah, I think pro leagues will take players when they see value in taking a player. The difference between basketball and football is basketball, you can basically go from high school to the pros. This 1 year cup of coffee they're currently doing is only because the college screamed and yelled to end the one and dones, right? Or sorry, to end the bypassing of college. They said, give us at least a year. In college football, it's different because there's a certain maturity that you're not going to get out of a high school player in the pros. You need 2 or 3 years. Not every player. There are some that comes out that are just freaks of nature that maybe could play professional football starting out of high school, but not many. So it's a player safety issue. Mandating it for individuals for any amount of time outside of what we already know, I don't know how you do that.
They just passed the law. But here's the thing: is like a thing in college football, is, oh, that guy is a great college player, not good in pros. We see that quite often. Like great players in college that go to the pros suck, and they're done in a couple of years. How many players are having this mind saying, if I can make this amount of money in college and get all these huge, and remember, we don't know what that cap's going to be on NIL outside. Like you might have college players in a few years here who are making 10, 15 million. Who knows? I mean, we don't know what the outside money cap really is. So I think I see possibilities. I'm not predicting it, but possibilities that some of these college players could be making enough money at the college level that they're not going to want to move.
That there's gonna be a maximum. They have to put some sort of a maximum on them.
That might be part of this too. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, because the NFL, like, man, you rely upon college athletes coming at you at a certain time, so you have enough of what's left of their athletic capability years. And for every year that those guys keep staying around behind, you're chewing into what value they have for you. Look at, what's the name out of Utah? What is he, 27?
Cam Rising? I don't know. He's 32 or something. I don't know.
I mean, that's what, that's one that they might be looking at him, but these type of instances, once they become more normalized.
Cam's got injury issues, though. I mean,
Sure.
At the end of the day, the players that are willing to stick around and hang around for those 7, 8, even 9-year college careers are the ones that, frankly, wouldn't succeed at the NFL level.
Right.
I don't know.
They're questioning eligibility right now.
I don't know. I don't know any athlete that's especially in college, that's willing to stay in the college project that is going to be a first or second round pick. There's not many that are going to make that choice. If they're going to be a high draft pick, they're going to go to the pros. So that's where the money is.
But that's what I'm saying, though. I'm saying in a future year, I don't know how long, where a lot more money is coming into the college game. Yeah, as things stand right now.
Until there's some checks and balances put in. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's one of those things where it's not a prediction that this is happening, but it's one of those things where you have to look at it as a possibility, and you have to make plans now when you can to head that off, so that's no longer as much of a possibility.
Last comment. We're going to get out of here. John Engel says portal should start May 1st and end on August 1st. So 2 months.
Good Lord.
3 months. May, June. Boy, 3 months of portal. This way, it would not interfere with school attendance. John,
with practices.
Boy, you're sure kind of the athletes. Universities and team management just would not support that. You've got off-season activities. You have all the preseason and not preseason, but all the summer camp time that has to go into for that. 3 months of portal is just not going to happen. Now I can see maybe 20 days and it being one portal season. The problem with a portal, you'd have to coordinate with the NFL draft. That might be a complicating factor, which is why it's pushed after the season now, is they want to have these players decide either go to the NFL or stay another year in college. But yeah, I don't know. That's one idea for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, last words, last comments out of here, Immaculate.
Well, we knew 2024 was a big year, and 2024 set the stage, right? Created the stage for everything that's about to come. 2025 is the year when the curtains pull aside and we see the whole thing start to come together. I don't know any other better way to put it that way, and I know that's how Greg kind of does his thing with the whole theater, and I think that that's just the perfect representation of what happened. 24 set the stage, 2025 coming up here early 2025 is going to reveal the future of college sports. And like as you say, it's going to be a new age. It's going to be a lot of fun to sit here and watch this in the next month, 2 or 3 months to see how this comes together.
All right, very good. You know where to find this man. You can see underneath his picture. That's his Twitter handle. You can always catch him there. And then, of course, every few weeks we'll be doing a special episode where we'll get together and talk about more regulations and
Absolutely.
all the governance and everything else that has to do with collegiate sports. We'll talk about it here and the business of college football, certainly. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight on a special night, Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you again on Friday for the Big Freakin' Friday show with me and Wild Ute and Moen. And hopefully everybody has time to do that, since we're not up against a championship or any. All our college football Joneses will have to be settled with the NFL on Saturday, so I'm not worried about college football on Friday night. I appreciate everybody for being here. Thanks again. Everybody have a great next couple nights, and we'll see you on Friday night. Immaculate, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate everybody. Have a great night. Stay out of trouble, and we will see you then. Bye-bye. Peace.